The wooden sword is one of the worst weapons in Skyrim. It's not really even a weapon at all. Wooden swords are toys, meant to be given as a gift to adopted children. It's a toothpick on steroids. It's so worthless that your bare hands do more damage. You're better off using literally nothing at all than using the wooden sword. So, can you beat Skyrim with only a wooden sword? I wasn't lying in the intro. Unarmed attacks do 4 damage unless you're a Khajiit or lizard. Then they do 10. An iron dagger's also a 4, but the wooden sword is sitting rock solid at a very impressive 2 damage per swing. Only the fork is considered more worthless from the standpoint of damage and monetary value. While the fork has the advantage of being a fork, the wooden sword's biggest advantage is being available in abundance. Wooden swords can be bought from general merchants, found as random loot, and can be witnessed inside the hall for honorable orphans. Alternatively, they can be stolen from a cat's hidden pocket. There's a hidden chest tucked away in the mineshaft in Dawnstar, which contains all of Akari's wares. To abuse the exploit that resets her inventory, she needs to be in town. But to rob her blind, it wouldn't really make sense for her to know you're there. Or, to take it a step further, it wouldn't make sense for you to know where she is, because she's not there. To immediately get an overpowered wooden sword, borrow the enchanted weapons and armor, strip them of their most important merits, take one of the soul gems you stole from Akari, slap it in the wooden sword with the enchantment of your choice, and like magic you've got a stick that does ludicrous amounts of damage. With a most impressive stick, I alerted the Jarl of the dragon in Whiterun, took a peek at what lurks beneath the court wizard, sold him my children's clothing, and set off for Bleak Falls Barrow on legendary difficulty. For those of you who had your legencherries popped with a wooden sword like I did, I'll explain what the legendary difficulty does, because I've never played with such an OP stick before. The legendary difficulty makes NPCs take 1/4 as much damage as they would on Adept, and also makes the player take 3 times as much damage. Do the math. Legendary makes Skyrim 12 times harder, negating the positive side effects of imbuing a piece of wood with the soul of a snowman. The Widowed Frostbite Spider killed me half a dozen times, despite my best efforts to avoid her. She made peace with the Draugr in her own way, and came out the other side of the triple-bladed swing trap a stronger spider than before. Only by cranking Skyrim back down to Adept, chugging potions, and saving my level up for a moment of introspection could I survive in any meaningful way against 3 of the most basic uninspired Draugr this Barrow had to offer. The Draugr Overlord, a single target, wasn't as much of a struggle to kill. As usual, returning the Dragonstone advanced the story enough to kick the cats into gear. They're at Dawnstar. The real game can begin. Up to this point, everything's been pretty conventional. Unfortunately, we've reached the fork in the road. The plain Jane wooden sword can only be a usable weapon without enchantments when the difficulty is pretty low. Then you're just playing Skyrim with a really weak weapon, which I already did with the fork, and I didn't want to do that again. What I wanted, truthfully, was to play Skyrim by only reverse pickpocketing poisons, but about 3 hours into that, having killed no one, I realized that wasn't the challenge for me, which really hurt my feelings since I took notes and everything. This wooden sword playthrough is more than 18 hours long. My last Skyrim video, on top of being misleading, was about 7.5 hours. There's no time to save Tamriel. I'm on a spiritual journey now. The Dawnstar exploit is the first of many I'll be using to create a wooden sword fit for King Paul. Akari's caravan needs to be in Dawnstar for it to work, as it uses her chest I ransacked earlier. Every merchant's inventory will reset after a certain amount of time, like once every 2 days. You could wait for their stock to reset and loot the chest by the Minecraft for infinite soul gems, enchanted items, potions, metal bits and pieces, an assortment of other useful shit. Or you quick save near Akari, attack them, reload the quick save, and their inventory's been restocked. Using this exploit lets you accomplish multiple important segments in this race. For starters, you own the store, you own the bank, and you control the printing press. You might lose money on the resale value, but you can loot the chest to get your gold back. Bartering raises your speech, as does the charismatic caravan worker camped out on the side of the road. In the process of pretending to exchange goods for other goods, you can break down those goods at an enchanting table to raise your enchanting skill, create new enchantments on armor and weapons to raise it even further. Soul gems, used to enchant items, can be found inside the cat box as well. The cycle of tormenting the simple trader continued on and on and on until I raised my enchanting skill up to 94, 6 levels short of 100 for the strategic reason of not feeling like taking it any further at the moment. Before leaving Dawnstar, I applied one-armed buffing enchantments to the armor pieces I had, and armed with Dinkster's Surprise and the sparkle stick that steals the souls of its victims, I saw no reason not to test out my new toys on a dragon. I survived as well or better than I was expected to, spoke to the Jarl to advance the story, got mauled by a bear, retreated to the river, it stood with its son and taunted me, and I entered the bandit hideout to harvest a few souls to keep the train inside me chugging along on the tracks. I would learn after those 18 hours I already mentioned that black soul gems are needed to take human souls. I saw no soul gem large enough hundreds of times and never once looked up what it might mean. At level 19 now, I'm on par with the dead skeletons as far as offensive capabilities go, while Baby's first bandit dungeon was filled with enough high-ranking bandit outlaws to stop my plans in their tracks. Magic, the technology of a bygone era, is one of humanity's greatest achievements. Polish your stick while chanting the special words, and you can use it to paralyze anything it touches, leech the life from its body and harvest its soul, or let you breathe underwater. Those enchantments don't touch the base damage of the stick. To improve that, you've gotta get your hands dirty. Improving weapons falls under the smithing skill tree. Naturally, wood comes from trees, we know this. Your children will learn about it in history class alongside how to turn a leftover human skull into a bowl for vegetable soup. Until my sword can split an orc in twain with a single blow, it will not be strong enough. Luckily, an exploit exists that can pump up smithing in minutes. Down in the basement of the Halted Stream camp is a book that teaches the transmute spell. This alteration spell converts iron ore into silver ore and silver ore into gold ore at the cost of 88 magic. Thanks to my surplus of pocket trinkets, poisoned swords, other people's hats, the important stuff, I had the funds to beat the ironworker's daughter every hour of every day to restock her inventory of unrefined ore. I finished dressing the stage in Riften. The sole commodity used to upgrade the wooden sword is not found out in the wilderness. Supposedly, merchants will share their stash if you ask nicely. I never did. Asking someone for wood isn't something I feel comfortable doing. I took my 30 pieces of wood, weighing 150 pounds from the ground, tried to ride the carriage back to Whiterun. I exceeded the weight limit, so I bought a stallion and rode across the county to High Hrothgar. Brother Bear and his dad killed my horse on the first leg of my journey. See, I'd taunted them for a couple minutes by riding around in circles, occasionally hitting whichever bear looked weakest with my sword. After I learned my lesson and took a new direction home, I found Redwater Den, and, remembering what lurks within, entered the basement to free an old friend from his cage. Telekinesis proved itself worthless in its own right last year when I played Skyrim with only telekinesis, and now it has its chance to be worthless once again by coming with me to the top of the throat of the world. With Horsington the First, then with me to the afterlife after we slipped off a rock. Back at Whiterun, I transmuted until the wee hours of the morning, and through all my back-breaking labor, I created 31 gold rings, taking my smithing skill to the upper echelon of the mid-20s. And with enchanting properly maxed out, allowing me to dual-wield enchantments on all items, I grinded away until smithing reached 38, and at long last, created a wooden sword capable of parting the sky like the Red Sea. 11 damage on a wooden sword, not to mention the extra magic nonsense, is practically unheard of. But wait, there's more. And believe it or not, I can't do this alone. This isn't a job for 2 people, it's a job for 1.5 people. How convenient is it then that the Jarl gave me a donkey for saving his town from a dragon back when I valued the lives of a nation over my newfound love of woodworking? On a related note, I mentioned a donkey painting on Twitter last month. This is that painting. One of the donkeys is named after Lydia, not Lydia specifically. I need a name for the remaining donkey. If you've got one, leave it somewhere. I don't care where. As for this next exploit, Lydia, Serana, Torvar, Falco, you need a follower, and any items you want to duplicate. The duplication is not as exponentially broken as it is in Fallout 4, but for items you only need 1 to 200 of, this works perfectly. In my case, I'll be duplicating iron ore and silver ore and gold ore. Get any follower, command that bitch to halt, and drop all the items on the ground individually. No stacking anything. Tell the follower to pick the items up. Back out of the follower interface by pressing B or circle on a controller, open the gate to Skyrim, turn around, go back into Whiterun, and your items will be on the ground and in your follower's inventory. This, of course, was the trial run. The extra metal I got gets me up to 40 smithing later. The summoning circle of dead fish does something else entirely, something far better. When combined with an equal part salt, these fish can do extraordinary things. 1 Abyssinian longfin, 1 Cyrodiilic spade tail, 1 pile of salt when stuffed together into a bottle create a Fortify Restoration potion. What's the point in that, wonders someone watching this. You can't use restoration spells in this playthrough, you're saying? First of all, shut up. Second, it's a beverage. Third, we've arrived at the 4th and, believe it or not the last exploit we'll be using. What you're about to see, don't bother asking why it works, it just doesn't. You'll be recommended by anyone who isn't me to wear a complete set of Fortify Alchemy armor, so that you have 4 pieces of armor, rings, or necklaces that make created potions 100% more powerful. plus 25% from each piece of armor. I had 3 of the 4, which is close enough. While wearing the armor, create a Fortify Restoration potion at the potion stand. Go into your inventory, remove the enchanted bits, drink the Fortify potion, put the armor back on, and exit the menu back into the game. As you do this over and over and over again, the potions become stronger. The fish become more confident. The salt is that fancy shit YouTubers use that you pinch with your fingers. Not that I would know anything about that. I keep my salt in Tupperware like civilized folk. Don't waste your time thinking you can do this outside of an alchemy lab by creating a bunch of potions here and drinking them elsewhere. I tried it didn't work. You'll get the benefits of a single potion, but they don't stack the way they do here. Here you can make the rings that make you a master blacksmith, an Olympic sprinter, or boots that fulfill the legacy of a lost loved one. A fake legacy. I never loved her, and her legacy lied to me. In true Mitten Squad fashion, I couldn't quite get the potion thing to work the way I saw it working in other videos. The effects always went away after the potion's timer stopped. However, 60 seconds is like 57 seconds longer than I need to make this wooden sword legendary. Pop on the bling, chug a refreshing cola, and this simple ordinary stick now does a staggering 71 damage. Up in Dragon's Reach, I ran the potion alchemy gauntlet again, created the skin suit, made alteration cost nothing, picked up a bucket and held it there in the air until alteration reached 100, only for the perk points. Alteration is the charisma of Skyrim. Over the next, let's call it 25 minutes, a multitude of repeated events unfolded once more, culminating with a circle of gold replacing the dead fish. I am a king, after all, and my wooden sword's all grown up right before my very eyes. At this moment, on Legendary, I feel comfortable saying the real game has begun, in spite of the goofy appearance. Where am I going? What am I doing? I'm not doing anything important. I overheard the Jarl's assistant mention that a giant needs slaying outside of Whiterun, and there's no better target for 273 points of thick, grainy goodness. I'd gone and done it. Almost 10 years after Skyrim released, I created a character capable of surviving the assault of a giant. My reward was 100 gold. I'd already given him thousands of gold for my house in town. This is like my apartment raising rent by a few $100s per month while giving everyone a $5 Starbucks gift card as a token of appreciation for being a tenant. My second mission after achieving God tier status was to strike down Grella the Kind. I let one of my boys give her a strategic pummeling in the throat. That killed her. As I was laying out her body to stage the accident, the children ran into the room, presumably because they heard her screaming as she died. I locked the children in the room and reported back to the other child that I did as I was told. Aventus Aretino is a Dark Brotherhood scouting agent who saw in me what nobody else did. I saw something similar in his mother. She did a little shake when I got too close. I returned to Riften. My stallion had been resurrected, and together we rode through the woods, culling the soul of every animal we came across. Technically speaking, I failed the challenge here when the horse got his licks in on a bandit outlaw. He didn't kill anyone himself. He's an accessory to the crime. Fashion changes, you'll see. Speaking of seeing, you've probably noticed that I contracted the vampire wart a while back. A guard had mentioned to me that the Dawn Guard was reforming, and Isran is a vigilante of Stendarr. He worships the god of mercy. He has no choice but to help me cure the vampirism. It's completely curable with minimal effort at the early stages. I noticed it and chose to ignore it. I believe I was knee-deep in dead fish at the time. My priorities were elsewhere. In the late stages of vampire illness, you can't regenerate health or stamina during daytime hours, and all the enchantments I've put all my heart and acquired souls into are aimed at empowering my sword, not increasing my armor rating. I think when the Dawn Guard saw a pair of glowing eyes and a glowing stick emerge out from the darkness, their priorities were not to help that individual. Killing Isran and wiping out the Dawn Guard isn't an option, at least not now. They kept me from going to the light. Isran forced me to return to the Dark Brotherhood, but I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of making it easy to get me. I snuck into the Dawnstar jail by walking down the stairs and opening the door. I killed the guard, walked into the cell, closed the door, locked it tight, and the Brotherhood of Steel got me anyway. I awoke in a room, being given a choice by Astrid: kill one of the hostages. I killed the fearless one first and he leaned back onto his legs. Killed the middle person, they did the same. For the third and final, I upped the ante by going for a 360. All three of them, the backs of their skulls caved in, obviously had heart attacks and died of natural causes after being kidnapped. I f***ed up the Draugr down in Ustengrav. The story does exist, we can't pretend it doesn't, but that's enough of that for now. Hidden in the woods of Falkreath is an ordinary-looking door with a bloody hand etched into a giant f***ing skull. Unsuspecting to the common man, that door opens up a whole new world to anyone granted permission to the other side. I said the right password and slid on in. As Astrid told me I was about to start a new life in the Dark Brotherhood, the light in my life went out. She ran me through my options for avoiding prison, and I got my marching orders in the form of 3 contracts from Nazir. Kill Bytild in Dawnstar, Narfi in Iverstead, and Denodius Papius in the mill near Windhelm. Bytild was first. I know Dawnstar like the back of my head. I know where each guard sleeps and the moment to strike when Broomhilda was all alone, soaking up her metal ore. What I didn't account for was my failure. Sneak attacks count as sneak attacks, but still alert guards in the area. So I followed her into her house and told her my plans, analyzed her for weaknesses, performed a single strike, took out the guard that came in, and the one after that, and the one after that, dumped all their bodies in the burning fireplace to stage the appliances, after a kettle took a pot shot at me, killed the town cook, and since the entire town hated me, I saw no reason to not go from house to house, seeing who mattered and who didn't. That included the Jarl and everyone in the mine shaft, and the boat people too. Papius was out in the wild, nobody heard him. Narfi was hiding out in the bad part of town and befell an accident, and Astrid assigned me a contract. A woman in Markarth performed the Black Sacrament, summoning someone like me to answer her call. A gentleman caller abused her for her friendships. She had the right reaction, kill them both. Before executing my plan, I visited the Markarth mineshaft to see what treasures lie within. Mercenaries are working the tunnels. They said I didn't belong, that I would definitely not fit in. Me and my big nose proved them wrong. I traveled to Windhelm and handled the adulterer first. I couldn't get her alone in the bar. Too many people nearby. Outside had too many people as well, but I took a page from Jeff Bezos' playbook and just killed this b***h anyway. My thousands of gold trivialized the fine for taking her life in the same way a simple liquid refreshment slathered on a sword can stun someone into playing possum. Markarth Girl's primary target died under mysterious circumstances. My flame stick ignored the gasoline. I couldn't play in the urn. Nevertheless, I returned to the Hag's Hole, told Maury that her friends are dead, and returned to Lydia to pony up some potions and poisons. These potions afforded me useful abilities, like surviving intense heat, increasing my stamina, poisoning my enemies, and turning down the opacity on my skin. With dozens and dozens of different drinks stored inside my house, I bought a house, duplicated some bowls of vegetable soup, and reported back to Astrid. She claims Cicero, the underground clown, is whispering of treachery in the chamber of the Night Mother. I was to snuggle myself inside the coffin and listen in on his words. She didn't have to ask me twice. I've got good ears. I heard her the first time. While Cicero was performing as expected, the Night Mother instructed me to travel to an ancient Nordic tomb in the Pale, for I am the listener, the leader of the Dark Brotherhood, the opposable thumb on the Black Hand. Astrid gave away my disguise, reclaimed her position as leader, and sent me to do some busy work until she could piece together why the Night Mother sent me to Vollenrund in the Pale. Nazir handed out 2 more contracts, Lurbach the Orc and Hearn, a fellow vampire. I started with him, shoved my sword straight down his esophagus, lining his entire throat with splinters. I left the bucket behind to ensure nobody knew I was there, checked to make sure I was still on Legendary, arrived in Morthal, and found Lurbach. I tracked him down to the restaurant, told him it was nothing personal, teleported behind him, left his body in a state of shock, and got permission from Astrid to meet Almond Motier behind Death's Door. His target is Emperor Titus Mede II. You know, God. He's still off working on the Elder Scrolls 6. We'll have to get his attention somehow. This kind of job leaves no room for doubts or second guessing. Almond gave me an amulet to show Astrid he's for real, and as a means of acquiring anything we'll need to pull this off. The amulet's worth a lot, but us being underground assassins, I can't just waltz into a gift shop and demand they buy my necklace. I don't have those perks yet. Delvin Duckworth appraised the amulet, extended a line of credit to Astrid. She doubted my leadership capabilities, and I was going to a wedding to kill the bride. She's the cousin of the Emperor. He'll come to investigate and will never make it home. Eliminating the bride can be done many ways. There's a big rock you can drop on her head. That's a crowd pleaser. You can drink an invisibility potion, then take off your helmet as a display of confidence before attacking Victoria, forgetting that doing just about anything with that potion will deactivate the effects. I left the audience to come to their own conclusion about what happened there, and turned to psychological warfare to weaken the Emperor where it hurts the most, in his security team's feelings. They are the Penitus Oculatus, the Praetorian Guards of Skyrim, serving as Titus Mede's personal bodyguards, and good God, is their morale about to take a tumble. Commander Marrow, guess what he commands, has a son living in Skyrim. He shouldn't have done that. Gaius Mora's been tasked with evaluating the safety of each of the major holds in Skyrim. He can be dispatched in any of the big cities for bonus credits. but doing it near the Dragon Bridge is so on the nose. You've seen mine, it's crooked. I could never do that. I followed him to a town, pummeled him to death with the knob of my sword, stole his clothes. Quality disguises are hard to come by, I'd know, mine just failed. Whether either of us like it or not, I'd have to come back here later. Can't have them hating me. I paid the price for my silly little crime. Forgot to plant the evidence on the guy's body, doubled back to correct that, and Cicero, poor Cicero, they made fun of him one too many times. He activated his berserker rage, leaving the sanctuary in a huff, a giant stab hole in Astrid's husband, and a chasm in my heart. Inside his asylum, Cicero summoned the ghost of Jester's past to stop me from reaching him. It's the arrows you gotta watch out for. A single arrow to the hidden kill switch hidden in everyone's body at birth stopped me in my tracks. At last, I found Cicero, caved in the front of his skull with my sword, informed Astrid of what I'd done, and continued to torment the Emperor by plotting to steal the identity of his favorite celebrity chef. He's an evasive never in one place for long. Luckily, an orc in my way has information leading to his whereabouts. With his permission slip in my possession, I was off to Solitude to assassinate the Emperor. Commander Miro, still stricken by grief, fell for the forged signature. My parents are gonna have a heart attack when they discover I've gone on an overnight field trip without their permission, but it's too late for them. I'm already on the bus. There's no turning back. Gina, my subordinate sidekick, asked for my assistance at every step in the recipe. She had the hat. I trusted her gut instinct to pick the correct first addition to the soup, then the next, and then the next, and then the next, and the next, and the next. My only addition was the root of a jarl tree, a potent little poison that dissolves the lining of the stomach, turning the victim's tummy into what resembles a stepped-on slug. Gertrude and I presented our dish to a famished emperor, who keeled over seconds after swallowing the substance. The guard detail immediately suspected Gretchen of foul play, as did I. I donned the king's cloth in an effort to fool those who just saw me flee the scene moments ago in the same hat I'm wearing now. It didn't work. They caught me on the bridge in the rain with a wooden stick and let me in on the bigger plan. That guy who choked to death a couple minutes ago, he was a mirage, not the real emperor. The real emperor was never here. The eight-legged octopus of justice was once again 7 steps ahead of me. Astrid and the rest of the gang had been plotting behind my back this entire time. I slay the emperor, the guards get the assassin, and the Brotherhood lives on. However, you know I would never get myself into this kind of a situation without a backup plan. I stole the Emperor's voice with my secret ingredient, used it to pacify all the guards on the bridge, slayed them all, caught one of the birds in a malfunction, and made a beeline for the sanctuary, where Commander Mero sent the majority of his forces to wipe us all out. My faithful companion, Arbok the werewolf, died in the heat. I saved Nazir with a sideways off-handed home run swing to the dome, and as the flames engulfed the sanctum, the Night Mother's sarcophagus saved me from the flames. After emerging, I found Astrid in the back room, cooked alive. Her final moments were filled with the haunting realization that her entire life working for the Dark Brotherhood was a waste, for I was to become the one true leader once she passed. To give her a true Dark Brotherhood death, one would end her life with the Blade of Woe. I did the exact opposite, by trying to stuff the remains of her life into a soul gem. As the leader, it fell on me to call the shots. Astrid initially didn't want me to kill the Emperor, so I will continue down this path to spite her memory. This is the end of the line. Not traveling to Sovngarde to face Alduin. Under no circumstances could I go in unprepared. Back in the Dragon House, I went back and forth between alchemy and enchanting tables until I had enchantments powerful enough to turn me into a living legend. Having hit points well into the millions effectively activates God mode, until the potions wear off and your enchanted armor becomes borderline worthless. I f***ed up somewhere, I just couldn't figure out where. Doesn't matter really, in the long run. I'd failed enough throughout this challenge. The king dies on this day. Good old Titus was on his boat. They had countless buckets stashed away below deck. That's true wealth. Using an invisibility potion, I walked my glowing sword through the bowels of the ship to the one true emperor, Titus Mede II, in all of his shiny-headed glory. Content with what was to come, he offered me one last deal, one last way to twist the knife in Astrid's memory. Kill the assassin who ordered his hit. I've gotten myself so tangled in these weeds, I have no idea who did anything. Whoever it was, they were in Whiterun. But what I haven't told you yet is what crime I committed in Whiterun. It's Skyrim's 10th anniversary today. Only one crime could fit the bill. I used my one get-out-of-jail-free card to murder Nazim and drop his body into the drink. It took ages and a national tragedy for the bugs living inside his body to get to work. But work they did. By the time I'd slain the Emperor, there were no remains of Nazim left to mourn. He was one with the well, and as for me, well, I did the rest of Skyrim, starting with Lydia, and ending with Alduin exploding into a puddle of buckets, as I did not beat Skyrim with only a wooden sword. If you enjoyed the video or learned anything, leave a like. If you didn't enjoy the video or didn't learn anything, leave a dislike. Thanks to the Champion tier supporters as well as other channel members for making videos like this one possible. Join the Mitten Squad Discord server by going to mitten.land. Follow me on Twitter @Mitten Squad. My name is Paul of Mitten Squad. You have yourself a wonderful day.